And it was like this knee jerk back then, like, oh, these bloggers, are they real media or are they not? And like, we didn't know how to deal with them because getting a media pass to the book show was a really big deal. And what do we do with them? And at the end of the day, we ended up just saying we have to accept them. They're part of the industry now. We could put limits on how big is their audience and try to figure all that out. But at the end of the day, it was like, they're going to come to the show and write about the show. So how bad is that? So when we were launching Manifest, many of the team members were from the industry and they knew a couple of podcasters. They knew Sarah Barnes Humphrey, like she was a podcaster that they knew. And we got in touch with Sarah and she agreed to partner. And from there, it was just like, it was my pet project, Blythe. I don't know. There was something about you guys. You're all entrepreneurs. You're working your butts off to create a brand for yourself and inside an amazing industry. And I just felt like you all needed a home.
Welcome into another episode of Everything is Logistics, a podcast for the thinkers in freight. My name is Blythe Milligan, and we are proudly presented by SPI Logistics, and we've got a fantastic episode for you today. We have Courtney Muller. She is the president of Manifest, the Future of Supply Chain and Logistics, taking place at the beautiful Venetian in Las Vegas, I think February 10th to the 12th of 2025. So we are here to talk about all things Manifest, but also how influencer marketing and how their early partnerships, and even to this day, their content partnerships with creators all over the logistics and supply chain ecosystem has really helped to create this nice little niche for creators within this space, but also I think has fueled a lot of the attention surrounding Manifest. And so obviously you guys do a great job at hosting the event, at putting on the event too. We just play a small role, but kudos to you and the team.
You play a big role.
Oh, thank you. There's so many of us now. There's so many logistics creators. So first, I guess, welcome to the show. I should probably say that to Courtney. Welcome back to the show, I should say.
Thank you so much, Blythe. It is great to be here once again. And I love telling people that you were one of the very first people to support Manifest back in the day when we were launching. So, we continue to appreciate that support.
Yeah, thank you. Because I mean, it really was your emails that y'all were sending out, and I thought, oh wow, this company looks really cool because they're doing something, a modern approach to media and marketing in this space. And I think I just filled out a website form on your website, and I was like, hey, I want to be involved some way or another. And now it's really cool to see the Manifest growth, and then also from the community of creators within this space. It's, I think when I first reached out, it was probably less than 20 podcasters in supply chain and logistics. And now we're well over 100. So I think,
oh my gosh, that is amazing. I didn't know that stat. That's incredible.
I saw someone put out a list the other day that it was over 100 creators now within this space. Now, I don't know how many of them are actively publishing regularly,
right.
But shows titled logistics or supply chain, it's over 100 now, which is awesome.
Well, it's a great industry to be in. That's the bottom line.
Exactly. And there's so many stories to be told. And a lot of those stories really begin at Manifest, because it's the one place that I've been to conference wise where I can see the entire supply chain ecosystem under one roof. Was that by design early on?
It absolutely was. From the very beginning, our focus has been on innovation and technology, and there's innovation happening across the entire supply chain. So we never said to ourselves, we're going to focus in on one part of the supply chain and the innovation happening there, because it was everywhere. So from the beginning, we've been saying we are end-to-end supply chain technology, and we live and breathe that. And I think it's one of the great things, like you say, about the show. Obviously there's some big trade shows out there that cover everything, but that's what they are. They're big trade shows. We are a conference, and we are focused in on innovation and technology. And we love startups, obviously, and entrepreneurs, and bringing in the investor community, in addition to all of the industry strategics that make the supply chain happen. So yes, I would say it's been absolutely by design from the beginning. We didn't see another event out there like Manifest. So we thought it was a window, and we jumped into it.
And so would you had just said something that caught my attention because I think we kind of have or I personally have a habit of kind of lumping all events into one genre where it's just everything's a
Mhm,
conference. But you
mhm,
you mentioned that, some are trade shows and some are conferences. What's sort
mhm.
of the difference between those two?
Yeah, the difference is, to me, a trade show is more focused on the expo floor.
Mm.
So what I like to say is it's miles of aisles. So when you go to a trade show, it's a big expo floor. There are free passes to get into the expo hall. And by the way, there's some conferences going on. And you may pay for those conferences.
Mm.
Manifest is a conference. We first care about the content and the education. And this year or next year, I should say, at Manifest, we'll be offering over 150 educational sessions,
Wow.
covering 60 to 70 hours of content. And that's a lot. It'll be over 7 tracks over the 2.5 days. And that really is our main focus, getting the right speakers from the right companies, talking about the innovations in our industry on stage. And by the way, we have an expo hall. So we're the reverse. A trade show is a big expo floor. And by the way, they have a conference. We're a conference. And by the way, we have an expo hall. You've been to our show, though, Blythe, so you know how important the expo hall is to us. And we do invest a lot in it, and our sponsors do as well. So we're not miles of aisles. We are really, I would say, we're a highly curated event,
Mm.
mostly, again, focusing on technology and innovation. So we're never going to be as big as a ProMat or a Modex, because there's all sorts of companies there that are not technology facing, and they wouldn't belong at Manifest.
Mm.
So we're always going to be smaller than those, but more curated and more high level. And I really think that's the big difference. The other thing about Manifest is we focus heavily on the networking aspect. It's really important for people to be able to connect and set meetings with the right people. So we have a meeting center in the expo hall that's free to everybody. Obviously, you pay to come to Manifest, but it is part of your ticket. And our badges. This is my favorite thing, so I have to do this. Every badge has a beacon on it. All you have to do is get close to someone else and press the button, and you automatically connect with that person, and the information goes into your profile on the app. So we encourage networking. We want it to happen. We track the number of meetings that happen at Manifest, and we measure, that's part of our success in our minds, how many meetings took place, because
Oh,
meetings
interesting.
mean business is happening.
Oh, that I love that. So I wonder what other kind of, I guess, interesting data points do you collect, from the conference itself? I mean, obviously
Yeah.
attendees. I think I
Yep.
heard Pam say the other day that you crossed 5,000 signups or 5,000 registrations for last year's event. So outside of, maybe meetings booked and the attendees, what other, I guess, sort of data points are important to you to measure?
Yeah. Well, we look across the industry at certain sectors to make sure we have the most important companies
Mm.
from different sectors. But we also look at the titles that are coming. Like, we care about how many CEOs are at Manifest. And we greatly encourage CEOs to attend through very advantageous pricing for startups.
Mm.
And we also feel, once there's a lot of C-level in the room, it invites other C-level. I mean, you don't want to be the one CEO who didn't come and you sent your SVP. You should be there yourself. So we count the number of CEOs, we count the number of C titles, we count the number of VPs, because we want to know exactly really how high level our audience is. And each year it turns out more than 50% are VP level or above. And I think last year we had about 500 CEOs, something like that.
Wow.
So it'll be more in 2025. And we will continue to push to get people from the highest levels of their companies to attend. They are the ones, making the decisions, and they're the ones that should be having the conversations with each other. So we really encourage the behavior of them attending and then engaging with in every way they can, including with the app, and with the badges and the meetings, and just taking advantage of all the other people that are at the event.
From the content perspective, that you guys put so much, energy into it. What does that planning process look like? Do you kind of target, some of those high level companies like you just mentioned, and then, filter the content from there? Or does it start with what are the topics that people are talking about, and then which companies kind of fit into there?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So Pam and Tansel spend the first few months of the cycle just talking to people,
Hmm.
and talking about, so what are the issues and trends that we need to be talking about at next year's manifest, knowing that it's still, 10, 12 months away. So there's many months of just conversations. And then once they kind of have an idea of, okay, these are the broad topics we think we want to dig in on, then they start making the speaker invites. We try not to repeat speakers year on year. We will, of course, invite a speaker back, but we try not to have them back-to-back years. And we're always looking for new technology companies. I mean, we want to put a lot of startups up on stage and make sure that we're highlighting all that innovation out in the industry. So this coming year, I think we've got over 100 startups that'll be on stage. We've got more than 150 shippers, which we love because everybody wants to see the shippers. I think we have about 50 chief supply chain officers that are going to be on stage, which will be really, really amazing. Dying to hear their insights and, what are they leaning into and how are they piloting new technologies and how are they dealing with all of the really difficult challenges that supply chain is facing globally right now. Ever since the election, we've been hearing people now saying, I want to talk about the potential tariffs. Like that's something I want to talk about at Manifest. And
interesting.
We've got a bunch of roundtables going on at the event and all the new roundtable topics are coming in focused on tariffs, and that's wasn't something we were talking about before the election because we didn't know what the outcome of the election was going to be. But the minute it happened, that topic was trending for us.
Oh, that's super interesting. So you have the planned stages of the conversations that you're kind of mapping out months in advance, but you still kind of leave room for what those hot button issues are, maybe a couple weeks out or a couple months out, I should say. And you facilitate those conversations via roundtables. Where do the roundtables sort of take place?
So we have, last year was the first year we did roundtables, and roundtables they're just thematic tables of 10 people with kind of a table leader to facilitate the conversation. Yeah, last year we did, I can't remember how, last year we did 20, this year we're doing 40. And so the topics are coming in now. But what's also happening in December and January is Pam and Tansel are having all of the calls with the panels. So every session, you know this, Blythe.
I'm on this. I'm on that email chain.
You're a moderator for us. And they get on the calls and they say, all right, what exactly are we going to talk about when we're there? So it may have been, I asked you to be on this panel to talk about automation and robotics, but wow, we're going to shift that now to nearshoring because that's what people are going to be more interested in. So, we have an idea of what these sessions are going to be, but as you get closer to the show and we have the calls and they get refined further, we may even refine some of the language around what's going to be discussed in that session. So the work really does go right up until the very end because we want to make sure when people get to the event that we're talking about the things on stage that they want to hear right now.
And what does the team look like that's doing? It sounds like so much work.
I know.
But you and Pam and Tansel, I think y'all are on almost every email that I get from Manifest. And so I know you're in there just as much as, I would just say, I think I would assume that, maybe you would have an assistant that would help or, you delegate it to someone else because you are so busy, but I feel like you got your hands, you and Pam and Tansel and all of it, which is awesome.
Yeah, no, it is. Well, Pam and Tansel do focus exclusively on the content. That is their job. Tansel also helps us with shipper recruitment. And then Katie Date, who I think is also, she is, strategic initiatives and shipper recruitment. I mean, it really is. She's got such a deep history in the industry and she knows people all over the globe. So it's been so tremendous to have her on the team and help us get some of these really important shippers to come to the event, because at the end of the day, the sponsors, we got to be putting the customers in front of them that they're trying to sell to. That is what an event is about, in addition to the education. So we really do try to focus and make sure that the audience ratios are right for our sponsors.
Are you in freight sales with a book of business looking for a new home? Or perhaps you're a freight agent in need of a better partnership? These are the kinds of conversations we're exploring in our podcast interview series called The Freight Agent Trenches, sponsored by SPI Logistics. Now, I can tell you all day that SPI is one of the most successful logistics firms in North America who helps their agents with back office operations such as admin, finance, IT, and sales, but I would much rather you hear it directly from SPI's freight agents themselves. And what better way to do that than by listening to the experienced freight agents tell their stories behind the how and the why they joined SPI. Hit the Freight Agent link in our show notes to listen to these conversations, or if you're ready to make the jump, visit spi3pl.com.
And in addition to all of that, content organization that goes on, for the show itself, you guys have such a unique thing where you are interviewing or having these panel discussions, not panel discussions, but interview level discussions. Pam is
Yes.
leading a lot of them
All the
ahead of
time.
the conference, which is
Yes.
crazy.
Yes.
Not crazy,
Yes.
but crazy in a good way.
No, it's crazy in a good way. Well, Pam is amazing. Number one, that woman is amazing.
A machine.
And, you just put a camera in front of her and she just goes. I mean, she's so smart. She's such an industry expert. She really is. She's a true industry expert. And I can't call myself that yet. She makes it her mission to know everything about, you see how she posts. You should see it on our Slack channels. She's sending us all articles.
Oh, wow.
It's really, she's amazing. And we're again, so lucky to have her as well. So the Manifest Insights videos are really important to our brand. We want to put the thought leaders up ahead of the show. Many of them are speakers, as you know, but just other people that we feel like, we want their message to get out there. And, Blythe, everybody wants to talk and share their knowledge. And we just want to give as many people as possible the opportunity to do that on as many platforms as possible. So I think it's great, the Manifest Insights series, and we will be continuing that forever. Tantal's been doing some of them too, Katie as well. I do some when we're on site. We all get in on the action. So it's super fun.
And then in addition to that, as if your media and marketing savviness knows no bounds, because you also were the first conference that I've ever participated in that actively recruited creators. So the YouTubers, the podcasters, the bloggers, newsletters, all of the creators within the industry, you actively recruited them from the jump. Giving them complimentary tickets so they can be able to talk about all of these different companies, which I don't know if you knew at the time, but for a lot of creators, especially if you're doing this, trying to do it full time, it's very expensive to go to a lot of these conferences and justify that expense and being away from all of the work that you typically should be doing. And so was that, how did you know to target that audience? How did you even know that, you had podcasters and YouTubers in this industry?
Yeah. So a couple things. It was a team decision, I'm going to say. I ran the National Book Convention many, many years ago. And when I was running that convention was when bloggers started to come onto the scene. And it was like this knee jerk back then, like, oh, these bloggers, are they real media or are they not? And we didn't know how to deal with them because getting a media pass to the book show was a really big deal. And what do we do with them? And at the end of the day, we ended up just saying we have to accept them. They're part of the industry now. We could put limits on how big is their audience and try to figure all that out. But at the end of the day, it was like, they're going to come to the show and write about the show. So how bad is that? So when we were launching Manifest, many of the team members were from the industry and they knew a couple of podcasters. They knew Sarah Barnes-Humphrey, she was a podcaster that they knew. And we got in touch with Sarah and she agreed to partner. And from there, it was just it was my pet project, Blythe. I don't know. There was something about you guys. You're all entrepreneurs. You're working your butts off to create a brand for yourself and inside an amazing industry. And I just felt like you all needed a home. I honestly, that's how I felt. And every time I talked to one of you, it was the same story. Like you just said, I'm struggling to get this off the ground. It's very expensive to go to shows. I need help. And I just felt like this is right for our industry. And I also know that it's the younger generations that are paying attention to all different kinds of media now. And if we're just going to do the traditional thing, then we're going to get the traditional audience. And that was not us. We wanted to reach the innovators. And to me, a podcaster is an innovator. You are. So it's been my pet project. I love all of you. I love seeing you at the show. And we want to just really keep growing it. We have 2 podcast studios next year.
I was going in that direction next. So I'm glad you're taking us there. Lead the way.
We've got 2 instead of 1. So doubling the number of podcasters that will be actually recording in our studio. And then what happens is I've already been talking to others who are want to come in. I don't have any room left in the podcast studio, but I'm saying, please come, just use the media room, set up wherever you want around the show. There's definitely places. I can't give you a spot to set up camp for 2 days, but I can, say to you, come and use the media room or just set up anywhere for a few hours, and you're welcome to do that.
Which is such a huge help. I now, if I go to a conference and they don't have like a podcast area, I struggle with the idea of bringing my equipment because it's such a hassle. And it's like, well,
Yes.
I would rather just, shake hands and, exchange business cards, and then we can record later on. But the conversations in person are so much better. Some of my best, download numbers, engagement numbers come from in-person conversations. And so you guys really, gave us that room to grow and gave us that room to have a place where we can, it's simple, but it's so important, I think, to the creators, is being able to have a place that we can feel official. And that's what Manifest has given us. And so I can't speak enough about how much that podcast studio has really helped, with just, I guess, establishing legitimacy, kind of to your earlier point about the bloggers. And because I was an early day blogger, and I faced a lot of discrimination from Big J journalism that didn't think that I was good enough. And it's kind of I think podcasters and bloggers and just YouTubers in general, we almost have kind of our own ego compared to traditional journalists, which I'm not,
of course,
shading either side, but there is kind of a suaveness to each demographic that they almost feel like competitors when they shouldn't be. They should be working together more collaboratively.
Side by side. No, side by side. We all need all types of media out there. I mean, that's what's going to create healthy dialogue and a really an industry where a lot of information is getting out, and that's what you want. You just really do. And with all of you guys, you're offering, just like we are with our Manifest Insights videos, it's the same thing. You're getting voices out there, and a lot of voices want to be heard.
Exactly. And I am curious with someone, you see so much content from the Manifest side and then from all of the creators that are attending the event. What is the content that you think that kind of moves the needle from the podcaster or, other YouTuber creator perspective? Do you have a favorite type of content that from that group, or is it what catches your eye?
That's really interesting. I mean, I think whenever you're talking to an industry executive who has a good story to tell, that's just super interesting to me. But I also love newsletters, by the way, Blythe. I love newsletters. And there's some really good ones out there. And, I mean, we have our own newsletter, but ours is just a compendium of articles. We don't have any original content in there. So what we do is, we have the Manifest Insights video, but it's just a compendium. But I'm amazed at, a lot of you guys have newsletters, and they're really good, so I like to consume those as well.
Yeah, I think that type of medium is definitely growing on me, because sometimes my email inbox just feels so overloaded. But if I have a few newsletters that I know that I can kind of get value from each time I open it, I don't mind just skimming it or also reading in depth. But it's some of those, like a handful of industry newsletters that I will make sure that I at least open and look. And so Manifest is one of them. Obviously, Freight Waves has a really good one. Freight Caviar. I can't mention newsletters without mentioning them.
Oh, I love Freight Caviar. Great
that one is one of the best ones, probably the
such
best
a good
one.
Name too.
Right. Another creator group that is just blown up in popularity right in front of our eyes. And so with all of the, I guess, evolution of sort of the independent media and the legacy media, how do you see that growing in the future? Or is it 5 podcast studios next year?
No, I know. Really, I started feeling like, oh my gosh, I wish I had a third this year. And it wasn't going to happen this year, but maybe. Who knows? Maybe. And it is funny now because, of course, we want the legacy media there. It's like, oh, what are the big media names that are coming? But honestly, it's hard to get them to come to trade shows or conferences now. They have limited budgets. To get like a big editor from the Wall Street Journal, that's really, really, really hard. So my best bet with someone like that would be, either we invite them to speak and get them there that way. Or I get them to look at I call it our virtual press room. It's going to be called the Manifest Media Resource Center this year. We invite anyone really, but mostly our sponsors, to make announcements at the show. And last year, I think it was about 60 companies made announcements, and all of those announcements were in our virtual press room. And we make that available to any member of the media, whether they come to Manifest or not. So that's how we're able to grab some of the bigger media to at least look at what's coming out of the show and then maybe write a story on it. So that's been helpful. But when I look at the media list now, it's mostly industry media. It really is. But there's a lot of media in our industry, and I think the industry media is doing a really good job, frankly. So if we can get all the important industry media there, and then have some of the bigger legacy media stepping in other ways, then I think that's great. I mean, we're always going to try to get the bigger legacy people, but it's hard. It's tough. They have a lot going on. They have limited budgets too. So it's just a game of trying to get the information in front of them.
Yeah, for sure. I think that there's kind of a huge debate going on in the independent media world where it's like, I think people are trying to combat legacy media versus independent media. And they're two different things. And we need both of them, in my opinion, because we need the journalists of the big legacy media companies to ask the tough questions and, sort of hold, truth to power, as they say. But then as we saw with this election, the long form conversations were really where people, I think, saw the personality side of things, but you're not going to get those hard hitting questions there. So I'm of the opinion you need both.
You need both. I agree. No, the more diverse, the better, really.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. The marketplace of ideas, I guess, as they say.
Brokering success demands a battle-ready strategy. Tide TMS equips freight brokers with the ultimate battle station for conquering a tough market. With Tide, brokers gain access to a comprehensive platform where rate intelligence and quote history converge on a single screen. It's not just a page, it's a strategic command center designed to help brokers win. Tide equips your team with all of the data they need to negotiate with confidence and allows them to communicate directly with carriers and customers from a simple control base. Revolutionize the way your brokers perform by giving them a competitive advantage with Tide TMS. For more info, go to tai-software.com/battle stations, and we also have a link for you in the show notes to sign up for a demo.
Switching gears a little bit to another content aspect, but some of the most creative that I've seen in the industry is a lot of your sponsorship activations. What goes into the puppy lounges? I cannot have a Manifest conversation without mentioning the puppy lounge. You have the mocktails. You have all of these different really creative activations. Where do you get the inspiration from for these things? Is it other events that you're throwing? Is it, you and Dan Reese, like kind of sitting in a room coming up with all these?
Dan Reese is a marketing genius, number one.
He is.
I mean, he's a sales guy, but you should hear him, Blythe. I mean, the headlines that just roll out of his mouth and the puns and the this and the that. I mean, the guy is nuts. So it was actually Dan's idea to do a mocktail lounge because he is a recovering alcoholic. Mm-hmm. And he said, there's a lot of us out there. We can't just have a beer garden and rosé all day and, cocktails at the end of the day. We got to give a little love to all the people who are trying not to drink. Mm-hmm. And he was absolutely right about that. I mean, he really was. And you know what? We try to create an experience on the show floor where people aren't going on there thinking, oh my gosh, I just have to go booth to booth and have people trying to sell me something. By having these fun activations, it makes it easier for people to engage with each other. I mean, you're just standing there waiting to get a beer, and then maybe the person next to you is someone you can talk to that you never even thought you were going to meet, but you're just standing there having a beer. So it's easier to have the conversation. I mean, when do you see grown men sitting on the ground petting a puppy? Not often. Doesn't happen.
It makes them so happy.
I know. It makes everybody happy. The puppy love is the best thing ever.
Yes.
However, I will say the inspiration for doing those kind of activations came from Money 2020. Money 2020 was the original show, Blythe, that created this different kind of show environment. They were the first ones to do it. And the creators of Money 2020 went on to create Shop Talk and Grocery Shop and Health. And now they're doing Human X. And they have this series of events that they've created in this light. And we took inspiration from them, really. I mean, we do things very differently. But that is one thing that we have in common is the on the expo floor activations that make it fun and engaging. And, it makes the show floor more sticky, as we like to say in our industry. You want people to stay on there as long as possible and talk to the sponsors. And if, someone wants to start with a beer over here and go get a glass of rosé over there, they're going to walk from there to there, and instead of just maybe leaving and going to a bar.
Yes.
So that's why we do it. We want to keep people on the show floor. We want to keep them engaged, and we want to make it easier for people to network with each other, which it really does.
It does. There was one activation.
It's a grown-up playground. It's a grown-up playground.
That's such a good way of putting it, because one of my favorite ones that I found almost on the last day of the expo floor was open, and I was so mad at myself that I didn't find it earlier, because there's so much to your point to see and explore. It doesn't feel like I have to go booth to booth, but it was I think the booth was U-Ship, and it was they call it like ugly freight of all of the freight that they move. But it was a beautician lounge where you get your nails done, your makeup, your hair. I wish I would have known that on day one, because it would have saved me a lot of getting ready time. Just, hopefully you don't run into anyone before you get all, dolled up from that. But that was such especially for women who go to logistics conferences, we're very used to having a very small bathroom line at logistics conferences because there's so few of us there. But Manifest is different in that there's so many more women there, and it's so much more diverse, where you really see the global supply chain of, not just males and females, but you also see the wide range of cultures from all over the world, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, me too. No, we're hoping to have participants from 60 countries.
Oh, wow.
And it's gonna be great. And you're right, it's so culturally diverse and gender diverse. I love that about the show. Obviously, I love the women's lunch. It's my little baby. And I love all the men that come to that event. And I just, I hope in some small way it moves the needle in some men's minds to help uplift women a little more.
Yeah, well, speaking of the women's lunch, you've had a women's luncheon at every Manifest since its inception. I think 2021 was the first conference.
22, actually, yeah.
Oh, 22. Oh, God.
Yeah, January 22. Yep.
So this is coming up on the fourth one. You have the women's lunch just gets bigger and bigger every year, which is crazy. So what can we kind of expect from it for the 2025 version, or are you kind of keeping some of that under wraps?
Yeah, no, I'm still waiting on one speaker to confirm. But I will tell you, wait, let me look up her name really quickly. Her name is Tammy. Hold on one second. Sorry, I shouldn't be doing this while we're sitting here.
Oh, no worries.
So DHL is one of the sponsors of the women's lunch, and they have had speakers at the women's lunch for a number of years. But this year they decided to nominate someone else instead of having one of their own speakers. So Tammy Wharton is the president and CEO of the Girl Scouts of Ohio's Heartland.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she's going to be one of our speakers. I'm fascinated to hear from this woman. Like, this is going to be completely unique in terms of the type of speakers we've had. And the other speaker is potentially going to be a man. I'm going to have a man on stage.
I love how you said that.
For the first time at the women's lunch. And I think it's time. I really do. And the person we've invited, he may or may not be able to make it. And if he can't, I hope to find someone else. But I think it's time for a male voice on the stage.
We need their help too.
Absolutely. And there's so many amazing men out there who really are so focused on gender diversity, and they do a lot to have equal numbers of women and men on their teams, and to help women succeed. So definitely want that voice up there. I'm hoping this person, fingers crossed, that we invited can make it. But if not, we'll have someone else. But what I'm really excited about is the theme of the lunch is going to be mentoring this year. We had a number of C-suite women saying to us, I'd love to become a mentor. And is there any way, like, could you let people know that maybe I'd be, and it was like, we were trying to figure out how can we do this without, having these big women get inundated with all these people who want to be mentored by them. So we decided that if you RSVP for the women's lunch, we're going to have a couple of questions. Would you like to be a mentor? Yes. Or would you like to be a mentee? So you can check off either one, and we're going to take all those answers and we're going to match make people through our app.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So then we're going to go back out to people who check that off and say, here's the recommendation. We'll probably give each person 2 recommendations, something like that. And then we're suggesting that they meet at the women's lunch. They don't have to, but we're just suggesting, it could be a place to meet after you've been match made. So at the end of the lunch, we're going to have Katie Date get up for about 5 minutes and talk about how to be a great mentor and how to get the most out of that relationship if you're a mentee or mentor. So going to be a lot of talk about mentors and mentees during the lunch, but I think it's really important and really relevant because it's one of the first things that women need, honestly, to succeed is a really good mentor. It doesn't have to be a man, obviously. It just has to be a good mentor. And a lot of people, I don't think they have one. They think about it. They say, I want that. But to take that official step of asking picking someone and then asking them and then actually taking the time and doing it, it is something you have to add into your life. But I really think it's important and it's valuable, it's rewarding, it's enriching. There's so many things about that relationship that I think are valuable and people should lean into.
I love that you are facilitating those conversations ahead of time, ahead of Manifest, because I think before we hit record, I was talking about mapping out my content plan up until Manifest.
Yeah.
So even, I know a lot of people are trying to just get through the end of the year. I'm already thinking like Q1 of next year of how can I map out my Manifest plan ahead of time and facilitate those meetings ahead of time and just get on people's books early in advance.
Do it.
The app helps so much with that. And talk a little bit about, I guess, some of the theories or the thought process behind the app, because it's your own custom app that you had built to facilitate those meetings and those networking. What other, I guess, sort of hidden gems do you have when it comes to the conference app itself? Because I do think that you guys have the best app that I've used at a conference.
Oh, thank you. So we actually use a company called Grip. And we use their app and we've made some modifications to it, but it is actually their brand.
Okay, gotcha.
Just to clarify, yep. The badges are our own technology though.
Oh, nice.
Badges. Yes. So I shouldn't say most, I think many shows have an app, but in many cases, the percentage of the audience that use the app is very low. And in the case of Manifest, it's very high. It's about 95%.
Oh, wow.
And the reason is because of the meetings and because we release it a month before the show. And because, like I said before, if you have a ticket to Manifest, setting up meetings is free. And we have a place for you to meet as well in the center of the expo hall. So I think that's why the uptake is so high, is because people, they're not dumb. Hey, I'm getting this 4 weeks ahead of time. I'm going to take the time to dig in here, see who's coming, try to hook up with them and try to set a meeting for on site. And I think that's the reason it's been so successful. Obviously, you can find anything in there. You can find any conference session. You can find a person. You can find a sponsor and their company profile, anything related to the show, the event schedule. It's all in there. And we will do it once again if anyone is having an event outside of the Manifest, sphere of events. Yeah, you can submit an entry, and we'll have a list of third-party events that are going on. Some of them are open for anyone, so some are invite only, but we will be featuring that once again. So if anyone's having a reception, a dinner party, and they still want to invite people, they would be able to do that through our app.
Oh, I love that app so much. And as you were talking, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I was trying to remember when I really started planning last year for Manifest, and it was over the Christmas holiday, that week after Christmas and before New Year's where everything's kind of a blur. I just dived into the app and just started, creating my target list of people I wanted to talk to or get a podcast interview with. I am, we've talked about the content ahead of time, the conferences and the educational sessions that you're planning, the sponsorships, the app, the technology. How do you continue to set the bar when it comes to conferences? Do you think that there's a level of this is going to be too big, or we kind of want to stay, where we're at? What is, I guess, sort of the future outlook look like for Manifest?
Yeah. No, it's a really good question because like I said before, we're never going to be ProMat, we're never going to be 50,000 people. We're not. But we are a business, and like any business, we want to grow. So I could see us growing Blythe. I'm trying to think. I don't think don't hold me to this because never say never. I don't think Manifest would ever be more than 10, 12,000 people. Because again, it's the high level of audience. It's the focus on innovation. It's it really is curated to a sliver of what's going on in supply chain. So again, I guess, innovation could continue, disruption could continue. It could continue to be so big that maybe we could be bigger than that. But I would see, once we're a really, really, really mature show in 5 years, something like that, maybe 10, 12,000 attendees. That's what I would envision.
Yeah.
We will, I will tease this right now. We will probably be launching sister brands.
Tell us more, or as much as you can.
So diving deep into, one section of supply chain. We've been talking about that. We're really excited about it. I have a call right after this to discuss a brand that we might be launching next year. So that'll be a way that we'll grow as well, is to go dig a little deeper in certain aspects of the industry.
I love that. I'm already interested. Keep me on that media list for those notifications.
Definitely.
I was listening to your conversation with Nate Schutz, who hosts the Bootstrapper's Guide to Logistics. Great podcast.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yes, and finally got to meet him in person for the first time at Manifest last year, and so that was great. And you mentioned something in that interview that I thought was really interesting, where you said, because Manifest is part of a larger company called Connective, and Connective has several conferences that are industry specific. So I believe you have one in healthcare. I think you sold the insurance one.
It was actually on real estate. We sold, the insurance one, was sold years ago.
Okay.
I was on the other side of that deal. I was at the company Clarion that acquired that event, and that's how I met Jay.
Oh, nice. Who's the founder of
our CEO.
Connective?
He's our CEO, exactly, founder of Connective. And
awesome. Well, during that conversation, you said that logistics conferences are different from any other conference that you assist with, that you work for. And I'm curious as to how is the logistics crowd different from other crowds?
Well, I feel like, I'm going to say this, but I feel like if I go to our other events, the healthcare event or the real estate event, I feel we're more global and more diverse, just in terms of the people. Like, you go to the real estate show, it is 90% men, old white guys in suits.
Really? I would have expected a lot of, realtors, or, a lot of realtors are women. Like, I would have expected the reverse.
No. And I convinced them to do a women's lunch at that event, and they did it, and it was really good. But it was like, there's so few women at the conference.
That's interesting.
I know. And there's something very down to earth about our industry. That's the best way I can say it. Very down to earth. I mean, of course, there's egos everywhere, but I find most of the people in this industry to be very grounded, and very nice. And again, there's nice people in every industry, but every industry has its own personality. And I've worked in probably 12 to 20 industries in my career running events. And I have to say, supply chain is way up there in terms of one of my favorite industries, because of I've built friendships in this industry, and I built friendships in a lot of industries, but it felt easier this time. There's an openness to people. I don't know. People in this industry just feel very real. And maybe it's because, supply chain has been an industry kind of in the dark for a long time. People were behind. It felt like a behind the scenes industry. So people who maybe gravitated to it weren't the people who, wanted to be in the entertainment industry or wanted to be in the publishing industry or whatever. And they're just more down to earth. And now the industry is getting its day. I mean, talking about 15 minutes of fame. I mean, supply chain is having, 24 hours of fame. And I think it's going to go on. And I love it, because I think it's a really smart industry. It's extremely diverse. It's so large, so large. And I just love being part of it, really.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, because it still feels very blue collar, but it also feels like a pathway, because I come from a very much a blue collar family, and logistics has always felt like a way for our family to kind of break through from kind of, on
Amazing.
the lower side of middle, the middle
Yeah.
class, and to
Yeah.
break through to, sort of earning a higher income. And I think you see
Amazing.
my old boss, who is still my mentor, he was a former truck driver and was able to move
Right.
up and buy out the other owners of the company and
It's
sell his
amazing.
company for millions of dollars. I
Yeah.
don't know of other industries that can happen on the regular,
I
at
agree.
least not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
But there is one other trend that I kind of wanted to get your perspective on, and that was, after COVID, I feel like everybody was kind of just, they wanted to get out into the world and get back to conferences, and so we saw this explosion of conferences, not just in our industry, but especially in our industry. And it kind of, I'll be honest, last year I got a little burnt out with going to so
I
many
bet.
events.
I
And so
bet.
I've tried to become more, I guess, intentional about the conferences that
Yeah.
I'm going
More
to and
selective.
why.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I'm curious as to do you feel that happening as well in our industry? And then also, in addition to that, what is the, I guess, the value or the place of in-person events? Because there are some companies that have moved to virtual only, but I
Yeah.
feel like there's a much needed desire, maybe just a recalibration of attending in-person events where you're more picky of, oh, I'm definitely going to go to Manifest, but I might not go to these other two shows because
Yeah.
I'm just a little burnt out. Do you get that feeling too?
Yeah. I do. I
Mm,
do. And there are a lot of events now. And especially if you're looking at the global calendar. I mean, we were looking at one sector of the industry the other day, and like in Europe, there was like 15 events,
mm,
covering this one sector. And I mean, there's so many of them everywhere. And I think you have to be incredibly selective. And it's not always the biggest events that are the best events. I like going to some of the really small events too. They're more intimate. You can have sometimes better
mm.
conversations. But I do think you need to be picky and look at who's going, who is it you're looking to see and engage with? And then look at the event from that perspective. Are the people that I really want to engage with that are going to help me move my business forward, are they at that event?
Mm.
And, that's where you focus your time, really. Yeah, I used to, when I was working in the casino gaming industry, all the sponsors used to say to us, there's too many shows in the industry. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to stop this proliferation of shows? And it's like, well, I can't stop it. I would say to them, you can stop by not sponsoring all of them. You don't have to. Just because a show exists doesn't mean you have to support it. And if you don't think it's doing, giving you the ROI that you need, then don't continue to put your dollars there. And if you quit putting your dollars there, some of the shows will die out. And I hate to be that kind of hard ass, but that's just the way it is. And event producers can't stop other event producers from creating events, but you as the audience cannot participate in those events. And if they're not good, they'll die eventually. So it's tough, it's a crowded industry. I think everyone is seeing that supply chain has become very big, ton of opportunity. I get why there's a lot of events popping up. I completely understand it. And I wish them all luck. I think there's a lot of space for really, honestly, for everyone. There's a ton of space out there.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree with your sentiment on it, especially with Manifest. I like almost mentally prepare myself for all of the peopling. The puppies
yeah,
help give me a break from that.
yeah.
And then separately, I love the other end of the spectrum where, for example, like TMSA, which I've been a
Yeah,
proud board member for them for years now. And
yeah.
we have a smaller event that we host every year. And it's about
Amazing.
200 people, but
Yeah,
the power of the conversations that I can have at both is so impactful and so meaningful. So I definitely echo that statement as well. And, as I kind of round out this conversation, what can folks expect from, we've talked about a lot with, the upcoming conference,
yeah.
but is there anything that, you feel is important to mention about the upcoming event taking place February 10th through the 12th at the
12.
Venetian in Las Vegas?
Yes. Yes. Please stay at the Venetian. Really. I mean, your experience is going to be better if you stay on property, because every time you're outside of manifest activities, you're going to be bumping into people. And if you stay somewhere down the strip, that's not going to happen.
Mhm.
So I really do encourage people to stay at the Venetian. The other thing is come early and stay late. We've got a ton of content on Monday, and it doesn't start until noon, but I mean, it is jam packed that afternoon. And then we've got Flo Rida as our closing entertainer. I have never seen him in concert. I know he's fantastic, and I'm so excited about that. We're going back to the Brooklyn Bowl, which is a venue I love. You and Grace right up
Yes.
front. Last time we were there, I remember it.
We've been front row every single Manifest conference.
Good for you. Good for you. So yeah, and just take, like you said, make sure to log into the app before you get to the show. Even to spend even an hour will make a huge difference in those 3 days. So the more you prepare, the more productive the event can be for you, really.
Yes, I absolutely co-sign. And I almost am having a little bit of anxiety that I cannot wait until after Christmas to start planning my meetings. The people who I want to talk to, I after this conversation, I'm going to go, and I don't know, can we go and download the app now and start that? When
It's not, no, it hasn't been released yet.
Okay. Okay. So I can ease my anxiety then.
You can actually, no, it'll be about 4 weeks pre-show. So it'll be first or second week in January.
Oh, perfect.
So you're gonna have to get through the holidays, Blythe.
I guess I'll enjoy my family then.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Courtney,
you're gonna have to enjoy your new husband.
I guess you make a good argument. Well, perfect. Courtney, this is a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate your time. Where can folks follow you? Obviously, register for Manifest. We'll put a registration link in the bio, but follow you,
great.
Stay connected, the Manifest newsletter, all that good stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Come onto the website. And if you're not already an insider, sign up to be an insider and you'll automatically get our communication.
Awesome. Perfect. Courtney, thank you again.
Great.
This was great.
Thank you, Blythe. Really, thank you so much. Happy holidays.
My pleasure.